Hi everybody, and welcome back after the coffee. It's great to see everybody. My name is Sarah Gearty, and I am with a project called the Irish Historic Towns Atlas, which is based here in the Academy. And I work with Jen on this, and I'm going to be handing over to her in a few minutes. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Atlas. Some of you may know it, some of you may use it. But we produce these atlases of Irish towns. It's about towns. It's very much in the urban environment here. And the aim of the project, I suppose, is to trace the history, the geography of the towns through time. We've produced a number of Irish towns and cities in Ireland for this series. And they're the red dots that you can see on the map there. So there's about 28 towns and cities that we've covered, some of them in parts, and the other places are the places that we're working on. So we're actively working, researching and mapping here in the Academy with lots of map sources and lots of other kinds of sources. And the idea is to trace the development of towns, and we really want people to use these things. So what they look like, we have lots of online resources. And then we also have these, which are the printed. So this is the most essential thing that we produce, I suppose. So they're called atlas fascicles. So we have one of these for the red dots you see on the map there. This is Sligo, because I was just talking to yourself in Sligo, so I picked out Sligo. So we have printed resources like this, and then there's online versions. Jen's going to show you that. So in every one of these, you got a text section and then lots and lots and lots of maps, and there's lots of visual material. And I'm a map person, so I'm going to be coming at this from that perspective. So Angela, was showing us maps as a starting point. So it's kind of tapping into that side of things, which I'm sure lots of you do already. So it's just some ideas around that, how you use the atlas, how you use maps, historic maps in particular, working with heritage in the classroom. So that's why I've said here, source maps as a source of inspiration and knowledge, because they're both. So I've done a little bit of work with children at primary school level using maps. And I suppose I'm coming at this as well, using the printed. So sorry for the people who are watching online. Some of this is going to be about printed sources. And in case you're getting worried, we do have one of these for anybody who's interested in taking one of these away with you today. So we will be providing that to you if you would like it to, because they're full of maps, and you can work with that in the classroom. So just to mention as well, so we're obviously coming at towns from an historical, geographical perspective, looking at maps, but there's there's a comparative element here as well. So what the map before you is our Irish towns that we've done cross-border, but we're also part of a European project. That just might be something you'd like to keep in mind. There's a website, we can talk to you more about that. But there are similar atlases doing similar things in 19 European countries. In the UK, for example, and we've somebody watching online who works on atlases in the UK, and there's towns done in this way. There's lots of Polish towns done. We've got Lviv in the Ukraine. So if there's children in your classes from other European countries or with links to other countries, it might be just a little area of shared heritage you might want to explore. So maps into the classroom. So access in a visual, relatable way, the universal language of maps. And I really believe this, and you can see when you're working with people, this love of maps and that way of a relatable way of accessing the landscape and accessing the world. So I'm a big fan of that, and I'm sure lots of you are here, but especially just to get in at the landscape. It's geography, but of course tied to the curriculum again. You've got history, you've got maths, science, and language in there as well. So it's a source for bringing lots of aspects of life together. All maps provide access to the past of a place, and usually at a particular point in time. And I suppose if you think about the kind of research we do here, the starting point, Angela alluded to this already, the Ordnance Survey, we have maps from the 19th century. Again, I'm sure you use it. So they can be accessed online. The beauty of these is that we have them for the whole country, every town, and no matter where you are, where you want to connect with as a person on this island, you've got the Ordnance Survey maps to start off with from about 1830. The 6-inch survey is available, and there's a great online source, which I'm just going to show you very briefly here if you don't know of it. You can get at it different ways. Somebody mentioned the Buildings of Ireland. It's the same interface, really. And it's this idea of layering maps. Can you see that all right there? Map of Ireland. So you're presented with this. This is very familiar. The map. You can use the zoom tool to zoom, or you can search for a location, which I'm about to do now. If you can see, I'm going to search for Granard. It'll bring up the various Granards, but I'm interested in the one in Longford. And there we have Granard. Here's the base maps on the right. I'm going to just click out of that now. It naturally goes to the modern map of the place. And then you can click on the layer list at the side to bring up we want the first edition, because that's the one that dates to about 1840. You click on that. Box. Sorry, there it is. And you can zoom in and out. There's Old Granard overlaid. Click on the 3 dots there. You can get to transparency and toggle that up and down. You bring it to 50% so you can see it's the modern landscape. So the motor Granard is there. Features, so you can do that. I'll leave it at 50%, or you can do the slider, which is there. And that gives you, you know, so this is a very, very good way of starting with this kind of stuff. Seeing where you are, you can search for your place, land wherever you want, and it's yours then, or I believe it's yours. So no matter how connected with the place you are or unconnected, if you're new to a place, this is a brilliant starting point to get into a place and it's past and present, and you can go in there on your terms. So I'll just minimize that now. We're back, yeah. So again, so using the Ordnance Survey maps, you can see the kinds of things that they show. You've got archaeology in there, lots of ways of accessing the past and your heritage. Now, to move on to Dublin, and this is the one, the only reason we're using Dublin is because that's the one we're going to send you away with today, but there are atlases with the red dots in the maps as well. And in Dublin Part 3, if you want to pass that around, I don't know, it's a bit awkward, but you can get the feel of it anyway. So there's lots and lots of maps in there, basically historic maps, which I find extremely engaging with children in a classroom. We have them from 1756 to the area within the canals, essentially, onwards. And then there's lots of thematic maps. They're maps we produce ourselves, and also illustrations and photographs as well. So as I say, some of them are big. We picked out one of our favourite ones here, which is Roke's map of Dublin, and just that's for the people online. You can see it there as well. So on the slide, you can see the kind of detail as well. But this is the size of the map, so you can lay that out in the classrooms. There's other kinds of maps in there as well, so you can get the kids getting around them and seeing what they notice. So I've just put up some suggested. This is sort of another way of coming at it. So you're not presenting anything from this map, and I found this very successful. That sort of visual thinking techniques of using these maps, like the same way you think of it as a very visual thing. So you're not presenting the information. So it's, what do you see? So what do you see on this map? So I've just taken out the extra of where we are today. And, you know, one day you might see, you know, Badger Lane, and then the next day you might see the bowling green. So it's really to get the kids engaged and give them some agency with interacting with these kind of sources. What don't you see? So obviously there's lots of things we don't see on maps. So there's, you know, it's a kind of a critical thing as well. And obviously there's the thing that we don't really see people in maps. So that's something they might notice, or they might not. And getting back, you know, they'll often be very, very interested in their own place and thinking about, where is my place in this map? So that's Roke's map of Dublin. Obviously, yeah, the river, both, you've got so much scope there. Often what the children will note is the cartouche at the top of the map there, or place names, mistakes on the map. The E and Molesworth was added in after. There's just huge scope here. Another map I wanted to show you was a historic map. That would look like that in the printed atlas. This is a map, again, somewhere a child might know if the city centre is that very familiar spot, the Bank of Ireland. I know it's the first place I can remember of coming to this city first, where you have Trinity College and the great curve of the street. You know, that's a very, you know, if in terms of texture of towns and cities, that's kind of, and it's a real imprint. And this is the White Streets Commissioner's map. and it's how they're planning for the new street. So this is how it looked before. So that's a very, they might get that if they know the city, or even if they don't. And again, what do you see? What don't you see? What more you can find? Or in the atlas, there's lots and lots. There's about 10 plates as well of beautiful illustrations. And I just popped up the new post office, which of course is the GPO, Sackville Street, now O'Connell Street. And there's lots of people in this. So this is, again, the illustrations alongside the maps are a way of bringing out all sorts of themes about our place, where we live, our sense of place, where we belong, where we don't belong, and all of that. So good luck with the maps. And as I said, if you can come up to me at the end before you go, we have a batch of those Dublin atlases. And if you would like one, you're more than welcome to bring it away, use it. And we do have scholarship sets, other towns at reduced rates. And I have a form, if anybody is interested in using this in the classroom, please use it, enjoy it, and use it in your own way. And we'd love to hear back how that all goes for you. I'll hand over to Jennifer now.
Thanks, Sarah. And Sarah is the geographer in the project. I tend to look at more of the text as a historian. And it was very useful having Angela as part of this when we were planning this workshop as well, to remind us to look at the curriculum too. So I'm going to run through some of the things that the Atlas, the IHTA can bring to some of the history curriculum there, like through local studies, and Angela demonstrated that really well through the DIB. I'm going to focus a little bit more about the Atlas and how maybe the Atlas can complement some of the examples that Angela had for the DIB, building the picture or the story around someone's life, particularly for the towns of any schools that you're going into. So life, work, culture in the past, absolutely something that we do, and continuity and change over time. And I'll show you some examples of that through the topographical information, and how towns, what happened to towns during years of conflict and change. Like the famine is always a big thing. Sometimes you see populations actually in towns increasing and other places decreasing because people are coming to the towns for employment, coming off the land. Those kind of things are just there in figures. And again, like Angela was talking about earlier on, building the story. So you saw some of the examples of the maps that are included in the Atlas. I'm looking at the text, and the text can be divided into 3 different parts. The first is the essay, which gives the story of the town from earliest times up to about 1900, and we have a nod up to modern times as well. That's about a 12,000 word essay. The topographical information, which I'm going to show you examples of, and I'll be referring to it as the TI because I'm going to stumble over topographical information if I say it too often. And then the select bibliography. So every atlas is a set source for a town. So in some cases, there are thousands of sources that we have used in compiling these atlases. And what Sarah didn't mention is some of these atlases, we go through every single primary source that exists for a town. So they're compiled into this one place. Sometimes these towns take decades to complete. So I think the fastest one we've done was Grangegorman at 8 years. That was like rapid for us. So show you an example of the essay. If you're not really interested in, like, because this will give you the geographical setting, and it will have some of the more heavy material maybe in there too, but it will give you context of why a town is where it is. But if you're not interested in that and you only want to use maps, within the essay we have what we called text maps, and these are compiled with the author using various evidence, documentary evidence from the Atlas or from the TI, and archaeological evidence as well. And this is an example of Drogheda, which is a really interesting town. It was 2 towns. It was separated by the River Boyne at one point, and it's showing the outline of the defences of the town. And I think in Drogheda, if you're familiar with there, St. Lawrence's Gate is quite an evocative thing. So what we're showing you here is what we know is there, what we know was there, because it's not always existing today, and what we think where it was. So we mightn't necessarily have all the evidence, but we try to bring everything together to give you an accurate picture. And this will maybe, it gives people clues as to why streets are laid out the way they are, why it gives names to certain areas too. So the second part is the topographical information, and that's where I'm going to spend a little bit of time. So this is the gazetteer of life through space and time. It captures these specific moments in time, changes over time, because again, we're talking from the earliest times up to about 1900, and it will depend on the town foundation as well. We have some towns that are monastic towns, and other towns are more resort towns, like Bray. Well, it has 2 kind of starting points, but it's really seen as a 19th century town. And we have another publication as well called Reading the Maps that contextualizes this as well. So if people are interested, it's a user's guide and how you can access information from the atlas, and more generally looking at different town types. Because if you're going to a school in a town and you see the street layout, it can be quite indicative if it's an Anglo-Norman town or if it's a market town, things like that. So that they can touch, see and feel these kind of things. And it's also, as Sarah mentioned, comparable with other towns too. So the TI is arranged into these 22 urban themes, ranging from the town name, and in this case it's Galway. So you can scroll down into on the first page and you'll see the derivative means it's a rocky place or a rocky river. And also the population of the town, so you're seeing how many people lived in your town. You can compare that with other towns if you have a rival, things like that. And then we go really into the DNA of the town. So these have been compiled in what every town has. Every town has a street, it has a church, some form of religious area, a defensive structure, I think we had castles, walls, those sorts of things. We have to administrate the town, primary production, how we fed the town, how we built the town with gravel pits, manufacturing, really important element of the town, trades and services, like the economy of the town, transport to, from and around the town, utilities. You're looking at your gas, your lighting, your dunghills. Every town had to have them. Health, education, entertainment, memorials and societies, which I'll show you an example of, and residents as well. So the text can be a little bit intimidating. So I do want to break it down to you that every entry, as we would say, there are entries or micro histories. We have about 60,000 of them across all of the atlases, and they are freely accessible to find online. And I'll show you that on our website just towards the end. So this is what a page of TI looks like. This is streets. So streets are all listed alphabetically. So this is an example from Cork. The very first street there is Abbey Street. So that's telling you one thing already. There's probably an abbey on that street. Okay, so the street names can be quite important. So every entry is going to have a modern name. And because we're an atlas project, we're really concerned about the location, the history of that site, from the chronology of that site, and the sources attached to that. So in this case, Abbey Street is a modern name. The location, we know it's north of Evergreen Street. And these digits here, they're the ITM, the grid reference that can be put into the GeoHive maps that you saw from Angela and Sarah a little bit earlier on. And then here we have the history, or the first entry of that street, probably the road of Church of St. Sepulchre in circa 1180. And here, right beside it, we have the source. So if you wanted to find more about that first, or by that reference, you go to the bibliography, you'll get the reference to Brooks on pages 336 to 7, and you can find out a little bit more about that site. Another example, if we're looking at street names, if there was an abbey on Abbey Street, were there dames on Dame Street? Well, this is, in fact, it was the way to Hoggs, which is Hog and Green. This is from Dublin Part 1. It was a great street, and we can see later on by 1364, it was a Thingmount Street. That was the Viking area of administration. There was a big mound down there on Suffolk Street. And then we can see it's Dame Street by 1565. And we look at the end of the entry, named after a dam on the River Poddle, okay? C18 Utilities. So we go to 18 Utilities and we see there's a dam on the River Poddle, and it's implied by the name of St. Mary del Dam's Church. Now that doesn't exist anymore, but that's roughly where City Hall is now today. And we see that's an early church as well from circa 1215. So just to show you on a map, because I don't want to be all text, this is the famous John Speed map of Dublin from 1610. And the number 12 here over in the corner on the right-hand side, that's Trinity College Dublin. And number 14 is sort of where Dame Street is. So this is the line of where Dame Street is today. We also include these historical compilation maps. So this is archaeological evidence that's overlaid on an ordnance survey map. You can see where Hog and Green was there. That's now College Green. This is the line of that street. And we can see here there's two dots there. And we look at this G2, these are the dam mills. So the dam was built to increase the water power for that water mill that was there. Okay, so, and mills are a really important part of any town. Sarah mentioned Sackville Street as well. We also trace name changes in streets too. So we know how many street names have changed in the 20th century. So if you were looking at a map and you didn't know what Sackville Street was, you can still go to streets. You scroll down to S, you'll find Sackville Street, C O'Connell Street Upper. When you go to O'Connell Street Upper, you'll get the full history of that street. You'll see Estrada Street in 1728, all the way up to 1847. And we have to do Dublin Part 4 yet, so you'll find out that it's kind of like Back to the Future Part 25. So that's the history of that street there. So Drogheda Street all the way through, and then it becomes Sackville Street. And that Drogheda Street was famously the Drogheda Earl of, Henry Earl of Drogheda. And he had the Ov Lane, which you can just see on the bottom right-hand corner there, just to make sure that his name was fully involved everywhere. So after streets, every other section is listed chronologically. So the earliest building will be listed first. So in a religion, and this is an example from Dungarvan, we can see the Church of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and that was founded in about 1202 to 3. So, and then everything else will follow chronologically after that. So it's always interesting to see what the earliest church is, or what the earliest building was, or, you know, so we'll go, I'll show you something for manufacturing now in a minute. Angela mentioned as well about the histories of a particular site. If you really want to drill down and look at the forensic evidence of a house, you might be able to find that. So this is where we are today. We're in the 2 rooms to the right-hand side of that door. This is what I call today Academy House, but before that it was known as Northland House. So if you wanted to find out a little bit about that, you can look in residence. You can see that it was Northland House, built in circa 1760, and again that's the Roke map on the right-hand side. It then became the Bishop of Derry's house in 1809, and if you want to find more about that Bishop of Derry, you could look in the DIB and get a bit of information there. And then it was converted to a Freemasons Hall by 1828. So do we want to know about the Freemasons Hall? Yes, we do. So we want to see what happened in this and how this building changed function over time. So you can see here, Freemasons Hall, Dawson Street, giving the location in former Northland House. So it's linking the two. So we have this kind of thread of that history. It's a Freemasons Hall in 1828, moved to new premises by 1835, and at that point it was converted to the Irish Reform Club. Do we want to know about that? Yes, we do. So we can find out that information just a little bit further on in Entertainment, Memorials and Societies. And then from 1852, the Academy arrived here. So that's when the Reform Club moved on. And incidentally, before that point, this is where the Royal Irish Academy was based. It's opposite the Provost House, and this is the 1847 printed town plan. And you can see there it was founded by Royal Warrington in 1785. If you're going into a school, for example, that we have a town published for you, you could show the school that you're in. So in this case, this is the National Model School in Kilkenny. It'll show you when it was founded and the amount of pupils that were there. That again might entice or evoke kind of some sort of sense of connection from the children there. And again, you can use the GeoHive maps or our maps to locate where it is on that map. Manufacturing is one of the biggest sections that we have, and I'm just showing you an example here that we cover the very big sites like those mills, and that's Limerick, like the mills from the early 13th century, but also smaller industries like glove manufactories, hat manufactories. It really is indicative of what went on in that particular town, and you get to see some people's names in there as well, so there could be a connection there for the children. And the last example from the TI I'm going to show you is entertainment, because it's always interesting to understand how we as humans entertained ourselves over the last millennia. So in Dublin, there was a bull ring that was over by the Corn Market North. We don't know exactly where it was, but there was a Corn Market there in 1382, and it was an iron ring for annual bull baiting in 1577. And there was also one of those old tennis courts there. Whereas if we look at Limerick in the later 19th century, we had skating rinks, we had an athletic ground, there was a bicycle club. So you can see how things have evolved, looking at that changing over time. So how can you access this? It's all on our website. We have 29 towns that you can freely download all the text and a selection of the maps from that. So if you go onto our website, you go down, it's all a one flat page. You can search 2 ways. They're all listed on the left-hand side if you want to go into Armagh, or you can click on a site, and in this case, you'll get Kilkenny. When you click on Kilkenny, all the downloads come up there. So it's the full download of the text, for example, which is word searchable. So if you're doing any kind of research in a plan that you want to bring into the town, you can word search, but you can also have the hard copy there to show the people there. So that's very much a whirlwind flavour of what the Atlas does, but I think myself and Sarah are happy to take any questions that you might have. Yes. The Poddle is, sorry, the Poddle is, it runs under Dublin Castle and goes out. Do you know where the Olympia Theatre is? Yeah. So it runs under that. I know where it goes. No, it runs by the outside of what was the castle and underneath that street there.
people and then
Yeah.
that way.
Okay.
Not using underground, or else at the mills to have like pits and.
Where's the source though? Is it source a map of that?
Yeah, yeah.
The overlays.
Yeah. It's the same with the job around the paddle, it's the right job.
Yeah.
Which is gonna be, I don't know,
Yeah, yeah, lots of different names. Has anybody used the atlas before out of interest? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
okay.
I do, when I went to school, I do like a social history project on the area. So what's happening now versus for grandparents' time, so it's relatable.
Yeah.
And then I pull up the maps of the area, the geohive, overlay them, so they can pick what
Yeah.
the school looks like, and you pull up a field. And I'm like, oh, it was never here at one time.
Yeah,
But everything that you're saying and how to evoke the kids' interest in that, it's so visual, it's brilliant. And then this is fantastic research for me going in.
yeah, that's great to hear.
Social history point of view,
Yeah.
making it interesting for the kids, but also relatable, so then they'll remember.
Yeah,
Howard B. Clark's work in the earlier Dublin maps is just an extensive region, Viking studies, you know,
yeah.
and the place names, Woodland Green and all that stuff, harking back to that age, Parliament
Oxman's
Street,
Down and yeah,
all that stuff. It's just so rich. Just know when to be interested in like that one, you know.
yeah. And really what we like to see is people actually using this as a resource to build on to further, I mean, whatever avenue people want to take from there, I think is, but we're always ready to help as well if you've got queries or questions or requests for info.
I think you have some online versions, didn't you? Some PDF versions also on that.
That's,
So
yeah,
that
that's
was really
PDF.
handy, because
Yeah,
you might buy all their hard copies, you know.
they're good for searching, like I use the online search all the time, yeah.
You said you have 29 towns up. Have you planned some more?
Yeah, so Drogheda was the last one that went online just before Christmas. It's a couple of tweaks to it. And then Clontarf and Rathmines will be going up online in the next month. No, there was initially there was a list of 40 towns that were selected in the early 1980s, 10 for each province, kind of favouring a medieval foundation. So there are, I think we're at 31 now. Some of them weren't on the original list, but they qualified to be a very good and interesting town to have. A lot of it will depend on the maps, the Ordnance Survey maps that are available, because we have to produce a certain map to be part of the European project. Which I think Sarah could show anybody who wants to have a look at map 2. And it depends on the author and then funding as well.
Are there some more survey maps? I've got the impression that
It's so we
are.
we need the Ordnance Survey town plans to be able to reconstruct this map, but not all towns got a town plan. So towns like Athenry didn't get one, Kilmallock didn't get one. I don't think Donegal town got one, did it, Angela? No. So I think the only town in Donegal that can be done is Ballyshannon.
Yeah.
And she is also the author of Ballyshannon, by the way. I don't know how many hats Angela has, but she's got a wardrobe full of them.
I was just interested in our based in water.
Oh, yes. Okay.
It was interesting. There's some very interesting kinds. You have feathered in kind of Tipperary up there, but also Carrick-on-Suir is quite an interesting history as well.
Yeah.
I know you have Waterford up there and Grangegorman and Yall, but I was just wondering like what plans there are for smaller towns like Carrick-on-Suir, for example.
Yeah, I mean, we do have. I mean, the next town that's coming out is Ballyshannon, and then we're looking at Cavan and New Ross after that. So Carrick-on-Suir is not on our list as of yet. But there's a process that it does go through, and it needs somebody who's able to do that kind of research, and know that it's going to take several years for it to come to publication. But it is a really valuable resource. I think we're sold out of a couple now. Kilkenny we're actually sold out of, and we're running low on Galway and places like that. So that's something that, I mean, we do have the online version, so at least you can access that. But there's nothing like having something in your hands to be comparable.
You said Drogheda took 8 years,
Oh no, Dungarvan took 8 years. Yeah,
and you said that was quick.
yeah.
Typically, what did the others, how long did the others take? 8 years was quick.
It's kind of a lifetime work, you know. Like an adult.
You'd say lifetime job.
Well, because the authors do their work voluntarily.
Yes,
So
sorry.
myself and Jessica are actually paid students, but they're usually like local historians, academics, so they've full-time jobs as well. So they're doing this research, and it's so forensic, as you can see, the kind of sources.
You know, so I mean, it's wonderful work, but often they'll be publishing other stuff as well on the town. So it's really the deep dive into the town and you're learning. And they'll often go on, because you've had such an intense, immersive experience in research, and they'll often go on and research after. But it can take 20 years, you know.
20
We'll
plus.
still publish The City of Cork, and it is, if anybody has loves Cork deeply, that's down there. Have a little look at that. That's been the biggest one, we've done, most challenging. And we have a digital atlas of that as well. I mean, there's a lot. Just go on to the website.
You got the whole Cork in one volume.
Cork City.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, Cork City. Yeah. And now that's, you know, that was maybe 12, 13 years, but we had Howard Clark was working with his wife on that.
Very good.
Huge experience. So there's the research, but then there's the kind of editorial side of it, because it's all parsing everything down. We've an editorial board, there's like, that's a massive act. So there's the research and then there's the editing side of it. So I mean, Jennifer would work a lot on that, those gazetteers, like painstakingly kind of connecting entries, checking that, where is it? Are you sure it was there? Was that upstairs or was it downstairs? Or the next to the back? Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on to Catherine and Grangegorman, but myself and Sarah are around, so we can have more discussions later on if anybody else has any
Don't
questions.
forget to collect your copy of W before we go. Yeah.